The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to our webinar, Use Moneyball to Grow Your Sales, How to Win with Singles and Doubles, presented by Jim Ball, owner of Square One Sales and Marketing. My name is Ryan Kauff, and I will be your host today. I'm the director of the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center at UW Green Bay. The Small Business Development Centers are located at each four-year University of Wisconsin campus and provide no-cost small business growth consulting and low-cost small business leadership training. Our website is www.uwgb.edu/SBDC. Also joining me today for technical support is Michael Wentworth of TMR Associates. Last month in June, he presented How to Improve Cold Calling Efficiency and Results, and that webinar recording is now available on YouTube. Our webinar today is the second of 7 in a series of monthly webinars we call our Secrets to Success series, designed to help small business owners increase their financial success. At the conclusion of this webinar, we will preview the upcoming webinar topics, and we encourage you to consider attending. I would like to thank also our partner for the Secrets to Success webinar series, First Business. With us today is Mickey Noon, President of the Northeast region. Mickey?
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody's staying cool as you can in this weather. First Business is proud to be a sponsor of the webinar. We view the series very helpful in helping businesses navigate through the issues and challenges that they face every day. We're happy to be sponsoring Jim Ball today, and always happy to be sponsoring the SBDC and Ryan Kauff. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Mickey. We appreciate your support. During the webinar, we invite you to ask questions at any time. Please use the menu at the right of your screen in the section indicated on the slide there circled in red. You may type your question there and then press enter. And we will also take questions at the end of the webinar for a few minutes of Q&A as well. Following the webinar, you will receive an email with a link to this recording. And now I am pleased to turn it over to our expert presenter, Jim Ball, who is the owner of Square One Sales and Marketing. Jim?
Ryan, thank you very much for the UWGB Small Business Development work here and for bringing me on here along with the rest of a good group. Also want to thank Mickey and the folks at First Business Bank of Wisconsin for sponsoring this. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. I'm going to get right into it because I know we're all pretty busy, so I'm going to get right into what we're going to be seeing here today. First of all, a little bit about me. What I do is I help clients improve gross margins, and if you look at the top right of your slide there, you'll see we increase margins on the revenue side. This is the harder thing to do, but it's as you'll see today, it's just employing some techniques that are available to all of us, but it takes a little bit of stick-to-itiveness, and but you can do this. I'm based in Green Bay, and I've been in business as Square One since 1996, and I got lucky right out of the blocks and worked with DuPont for the first 4 years of my business history. But since then, I've focused on working with small to medium-sized businesses, roughly $3 million to $15 million in sales. I loved working with DuPont, but felt that there was so much opportunity for profits was really being missed by the big companies. It was almost criminal. Now, it's attention to detail and a little hand-holding goes a long way, as you're about to find out. And larger companies often don't take the time to do it. I must say that making Friday afternoon flights from Austin Straubel from Chicago back to Austin Straubel in Green Bay had a lot to do with me wanting to stay small too. So you can go to the next slide now. We'll talk a little bit more about Moneyball. So Moneyball, the art of winning an unfair game. The point here is simple. Sales is an unfair game, and it's about winning. Someone has always got more money or more advantage than you do. That's the unfair part of it. But that doesn't mean you can't win. Next slide. We're using Moneyball in the baseball analogy here, and so we're going to talk about the Yankees. Now, you can buy it like the Yankees, which is quick and short-lived. Or, next slide, you can grow it like the Cardinals. As you look at the quote here from John Mozeliak, who's the Cardinals GM, quote, "We knew the only way to achieve success consistently is to have a strong player procurement and player development program. This is sustainable. This is sustainable." By the way, for the Packer fans there, the Green Bay Packers do it this way too, and both the Cardinals and the Packers are financially robust with strong cash positions. It's because they both play Moneyball. And we'll go to the next slide. So you have to determine which best describes you. Are you the rabbit like the Yankees chasing the big contracts all the time, or are you like the Cardinals? Who's heard that strong top-line sales hides a lot of sins? Most of us have heard that before, and the companies that I work with eventually become more like the Cardinals than the Yanks. Their bottom lines are healthier because they're not just hunting for the big game. They're not just looking for the big sluggers. Don't get me wrong, home run hitters are very, very important. But solo home runs don't get it done. You've got to have runners on base. 2- and 3-run homers are what's going to win the games for you in the long run. So you've got to have people on base, and in this case, you need sales in your pipeline. People in your sales pipeline, that's what we're going to talk about. By the way, just before the webinar, I just jumped on and I checked out how these teams are doing this year. Right now, the Yankees are the #1 team in payroll with $160,400,000 in payroll. They're currently 4th, and the record is 51-44. The Cardinals are the 11th highest payroll team. They're at $116 million. So they're $112 million less. They have a better record than the Yankees at 57-36, and they're in first place in their division. And just to kind of throw a little more spice into the thing, I checked on the Oakland A's, which is the team that is the really the author of the Moneyball, what the movie is all about. Listen to this. The Oakland A's right now they're at 56-39. They're 5 games better than the Yankees in the win column. They're in first place in the AL West, and they are number 26th in payroll, $68 million. The difference between the Yankees payroll at $228 and the Oakland payroll is $160 million. I might have misspoke there before. The Yankees were actually at $228. So that goes to show that you can win at this game without paying the big hitters. Next slide. So how do you do this? You got to create a farm system. I spoke briefly about if you want to grow sustainable sales, you have to have that farm system. Number one, to do that, you have to focus on the high priority job you do for your customers. Now, what does that mean? To create a farm system, you need to know what your customers hire you to do. And you must do this first. And I just want to give a plug to our technical director here today, Michael Wentworth. As you look on the bottom of that slide, you'll see his TMR Associates website. Michael gave a really good webinar last month, and it's available for you to download, about how important this is to know. You may think you know why your customers hire you, but you probably don't. And what you need to know, you have to know the people, what's the task they hire you to do. And it's not likely that it is what you think it is. And once you learn this, it's going to have deep and lasting repercussions throughout your entire, revenue generation efforts, not just what we're talking about today. And again, for more on this, check out Michael's website. And it really is a fascinating webinar, and it tells about how you can go about doing this. But we'll go to number 2 now. The next step you have to do is, once you've created a farm system, in order to do that, you recruit high-margin prospects. So it simply means doing the work to find out who else needs the task people hire you to do done. So that's point number 2. Who else needs what you do? Number 3, again, simple stuff. Number 3, develop prospects into high-margin customers. Then what you have to do is, once you have the prospect, you got to stay in touch with them. You don't have to overwhelm them. We're all overwhelmed today. but you do have to stay in touch, and we'll cover that again. And finally, you need to measure your results. Next slide. So how do we create the farm system? Some of these terms you'll see here, you create a high-performance database. These may be familiar to you. What I do with our databases, though, might be a little bit unfamiliar. But first of all, you, again, find out who your high-margin customers are. You have to look at your current customer list. Where are you making your higher margins? Chances are there's going to be the medium to the smaller clients that are giving you a lot of margins. The bigger customers may or may not be giving you as good of margins. So anyway, you identify internally who your high margins customers are. And your sales staff is likely going after the home run hitters because they're rewarded for going after that big game. Your scouting department is the one that needs then to identify the bottom 80. I call it the bottom 80. That is the low transaction, high margin prospects, which provide you maybe 20 to 30% of your top line, but 80% of your bottom line. They're the singles and doubles guys, and you got to have them. You have to have them. It's not hard to find them, but it is if you're not looking. So create your own in-house database of prospects, and that's a single, listen closely, this is the single most valuable task any business owner can perform. I'm going to repeat that. Creating your own in-house database is the single most valuable task any business can perform. You don't talk about it, just do it. Most of us don't do that. It's not hard, as you'll see. And then keep it simple. Don't get really bogged down shopping for state-of-the-art CRM software either. Excel works just fine here. You don't need to go bonkers. Just use Excel. It's compatible with any CRM software you may be using if you don't want to go that way. But there's a little-known fact I read on a blog recently. Did you know that if you Google CRM failures, you'll get almost 8 million hits? And if you we just got a question in here. Someone has a question that said, can I just buy a list? Just buying a list, maybe some of us have already had experiences with that. It's not good enough. You want to get to know these people. And a list is much more general. That's sort of like being in this hemisphere, rather than we want to get you down to the street address and the number where your customers reside. So sure, you can buy a list, but that's not what I'm talking about. That might be a starting point, but then you've got to cull that list. Hope that answers your question. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about recruiting your high margin customers. You have to make sure that they fit your team. How do you do that? Okay, now you've got your list. Maybe you've just purchased your list. Or maybe you've created a list from one of any number of options that you can get into. There's so many different ways you can do this. We won't get into the specifics of that there, but we can, if you want to talk to me personally later. But here's where you roll up your sleeves. You have to qualify each customer before entering them into the database via the web or other sources. So you use the web, make sure that they're there, and then you call them. And here's where your box, that's the box. The task your customers hire you to do is vital. Talk to them. Or you can just leave a message. You already understand they're a business. They're there. So you just leave a message that has your "we do this." That way, the person on the other side of the phone knows exactly who you are, exactly what you're talking about. And then, with that message, or with the message you're giving them as you talk to them, just let them know you want to stay in touch with them. We just want your permission to stay in touch with you. You will get people saying thank you. So what you want to do is, we're talking about flesh and blood here. Use flesh and blood to qualify them. Don't depend on technology. We're human. We're hardwired for relationships. Use that, people, to your great and very competitive advantage. Because while you're doing this, your competition is depending on email and social media and other what I'll call misdirections that ignore the basic work of digging for gold. We just got another question in here. Someone's asking, how do you find time to make the calls? Well, you make the calls. You fit that into your day. You're going to see a little later on where we talk about, if you qualify 10 prospects a week, figure it takes maybe 45 minutes to do that once you know what you're doing. It doesn't take long. You can do the math on that, how fast that builds up into a good database. And you're going to be learning a whole lot of things too, not just plopping a name and address and a phone number and perhaps an email into your database, but you'll be finding out some other things as well. Next slide. So now we want to develop our prospects into high-margin customers. What do? Once you contact them, confirm they exist, and they're in your sweet spot, stay in touch. Personal contact, emails, and postcards are all you need. It's simple. If you're doing more than this, you're spending way too much. Quite often, after the initial call, sometimes I'll send out a file folder that's color with a flyer in it, because it's likely going to stand out for them, so we'll have it on file. Again, this sounds basic, folks, but it really works. So that we stick out of their other files. Encourage them to keep the postcards and other mailings in the file for reference when you call them. And as you'll see, I've got 3 notes here, communicating consistently. Call 2 to 4 times a year, even if it's just a message saying, hi, hope you're keeping our red file folder on file there, and we'll continue to stay in touch with you. Also, emails can be effective. However, you're going to get about 50% of the people, that's been my experience anyway, that are not going to give you permission to use their email. So you have to find something else. So if you just do little postcards, little flyers, you don't have to be elaborate, with a nice little message 4 to 6 times a year. That's all you need to do. And when you call them, so you're doing a call, you're doing a mailing, you're doing an email, they're getting all of this personal contact. And a lot of people do the 2 and the 3, the emails and the postcards, but they don't do the calls, and that's the key. That is the key. Again, we're hardwired for that. Next slide. Next, there we go. Okay, so now you've got your database. This is just basic stuff. Again, keep it real simple. You don't need to get complicated here. What's the cost of your communications program, the cost of your in-house and outsourced investment versus sales and profit? And take a long-term view. If you're looking for a quick fix for sales, don't bother with this. This is a long-term, this is the tortoise wins the race kind of thing. Because without this, you'll keep paying home run hitters to swing from the heels with no one on base. When you play Moneyball, it's the better long-term pay, and it will pay off. You don't want to go crazy with your measurements because, again, we can waste a lot of time making graphs look good, and we want to find out, is the money getting to the bottom line? That's what we want to do. So that's pretty simple stuff. Next slide. Don't be seduced, folks, by chicks dig the long ball approach to building a strong and predictable sales function. Solo home runs don't win pennants. Home runs with singles, doubles, and hitters on base do. This is all about filling your sales pipeline, folks. And you don't have to take your sales reps off of what they're doing already in order to do this. What it takes, though, is it takes focus, like most things. It takes patience. It takes persistence. And do the work if you just make this a part of your regular process. I'm going to do an anecdote here. I don't know the gentleman's name, but I think he's a local guy. Actually, it might be even Ryan, a graduate from UWGB, who's the head of one of the major golf club manufacturers in the world, who his key to success was that he simply said, I make phone calls to people 1 a day, every day. People he's never met before, to talk about what his business does. 1 phone call a day, and that's got his business doing, tremendous. It's the same philosophy that this is here. Just do it steady as she goes, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and before you know it, you're going to have a database that is qualified. You're going to have people, nobody else is doing it, and you're probably likely in your industry, and you're playing Moneyball. Next slide. So, how do we make more money and impact gross margins? Currently, this is a little bit here. One of my clients is in a very low margin industry. It's a top line focused. They were working with 3 diverse markets. They were spread too thin, and they were just discounting to win the business. It was top line business. and we stayed with them, and I've been working with them for a while, and we've improved using the Moneyball deal here. Again, remembering that the sweet spot, the task that you're trying to do, know what you do best, know what people hire you to do, and stay there. We've increased, in a low margin business, we've increased their margins 166% over the years. We focused on the most profitable market. We implemented the Moneyball program. We had slow, steady, early wins, and the growth rate is increasing. And it really is fascinating, folks, how this will, your pipeline will be filled, and you'll be starting to get ongoing opportunities when you nurture your farm system. Now, when busy and stressed out owners say, I need more sales, which means I need cash, and 3% is the best I can get, the accountant will likely say that he needs more volume and he needs to cut costs. That's a recipe for stress. It's a recipe for mega stress. It's a squirrel's cage existence, and that's very difficult to escape from. In truth, what owners should focus on is higher margin business. Adding high revenue, low margin business, you're simply growing the profit devouring monster that you're developing in your business. And don't do that. Hit your sweet spot. Find customers who need what you sell and will pay for it. Otherwise, you'll have a baseball team that has big sluggers with big salaries that strike out a lot. And your bases will be empty when the big lugs finally do connect. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about, again, I touched on this a little bit earlier. You know, what are the numbers on this? How do we get things to do? First of all, what we do is it's a steady as you go thing. As you see, we use the tortoise, the sustainable tortoise there as a logo, because it's just steady. If you qualify 10 prospects each week, you're gonna have 520 prospects at the end of the year. Pretty simple math. Which one of you out there wouldn't like to have a qualified database that you're constantly communicating with of 520 high margin prospects? This is how it works. And you don't have to tell your sales reps. It's not an either or proposition. Don't tell your sales reps to stop what they're doing. Let them do it. But by playing Moneyball, you'll steadily improve your margins. You'll be creating the greatest competitive advantage, again, any business could have, a qualified database of sales prospects. I can guarantee that your competition isn't doing that. Got a couple of questions here regarding dollars and cents. How do you compete against low price competitors? One of the things that I always say is you can't, you know, some of your customers, if you get into a low balling contest, you're in the wrong business, because customers that you get because you're low priced are going to toss you out the door just as fast when someone else comes in low ball. So I would recommend against getting into that game. And are there really customers who are willing to pay more? Absolutely. Absolutely. They're out there. We just lead with price way too much. Hope that answers your questions. Next slide. So who does it? Let's talk about this briefly. The tendency is to hand this off to an administrative person. That's a big mistake because it doesn't work. That person who talks to your customers needs to be usually a senior level person who can engage in a meaningful dialogue should that break out. Can marketing do this? For the most part, most of you, your marketing department is really more of an administrative function, so you're probably not going to gain a whole lot there. Okay, can sales do it? Let's remember, sales value is closing deals and servicing accounts. I've been in this business for 35 plus years, sales and marketing, and there's a very, very few sales reps, even though this helps them, let's be honest here, that will do this work. They'll say they'll do it, it'll stress them out, but it's not what they do best. So let's let those guys out there make it rain doing what they do best. The sad truth is they're farmers. They're not hunters. They're just not true meat eaters. So the truth is management is the best choice. No one knows the business better. No one knows the story better. No one has more skin in the game. Now management can say, oh no, not another job. Again, when you just do it briefly, you're going to learn about your business. You're going to get information that you never could have gotten anywhere else, and you're going to get it straight from the horse's mouth. The only other option is to hire a specialist who shares the same experience and has skin in the game like you. So that's who does it. Next slide. That's Moneyball, folks. At Square One, we do the work. I hope you've gotten an idea of how you can build your farm system here and how you don't. There are people out there that the question that I got recently about, are there really customers willing to pay more? You're not going to believe it. They are. They're out there. When you bring value and when you determine what your sweet spot is and play Moneyball, you can win. Do we have any questions? Here's a question. Do I need to pay for online ads like Google pay-per-click? Again, I would recommend it against that. That's getting sort of into the philosophy of the work that Square One does. My personal philosophy is that any kind of advertising, any kind of thing that you do, you need to look at who you are and where you are. There's not one general question for that. And we have another follow-up question to that that says, what about the yellow pages? Should I pay for online listings? Again, the answer is yes and no, depending on who you are. I have one client. I have clients that are anywhere from, like I mentioned, a low-margin business or a extremely labor-intense business to a more technologically based business. Your customers are going to determine where you're going to hunt. Are you fishing for muskie or are you hunting for white-tailed deer? They both require different tactics. So there you go. We got another question here. How long before I see results? Well, if you go to my website at square1jb.com, you'll see that there's 10 simple truths of business. And one of the things that is part of my philosophy is that the customer is not always right. One of the quickest results that I ever have with any of my clients is we go in and fire bad customers. You'd be surprised how quickly, well, you wouldn't, how quickly that impacts your bottom line. If you've got customers that are beating you up on price and saying, you need me more than I need you, you got a problem. And if you want to see quick margin increase, get rid of those customers. I know it's easier said than done, but you have a lot more ability to get rid of those customers when you start building a bottom line and a farm system. You don't have to pay that big slugger. When he gets into contract negotiations, you can say, hey, pal, you hit 220 last year with 20 home runs. I've got doubles and singles guys and a guy that hits 10 home runs. I'm not paying you that kind of money. So results happen. You can get good results quickly. Moving from a 3% to an 8% margin is something like the example I showed you. Will take some time, but you can certainly get immediate results. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention, for the time. Okay, I guess we got one other question here, and then we want to get you out of here. We said 1:30. Excuse me. What about lead nurturing software? Folks, again, I'm going to say most of this stuff should be done by rolling up your sleeves and talking to your clients. There's certain softwares that can aid and abet that, but we're just talking about the basics here. In terms of lead nurturing software, that's a pretty big world out there, and you can try that if you want, but again, I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So with that, if you guys have any other questions, you can get a hold of me at my website. You'll be getting a copy of this, I believe, and without any further ado, again, I want to thank First Business Bank of Wisconsin for enabling me to take some time with you today, and I'm going to turn this over to Ryan, who is the Director of UWGB Small Business Development. Ryan, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Jim, thank you very much. Excellent information and very valuable. As a Cubs fan first who actually cheers for the Brewers, it does pain me that you had to use so many Cardinal references, but we'll take them. Now our webinar series is the third Tuesday of every month at noon, or you can sign up on the third Thursday at 1 p.m. And our webinar for next month is going to feature Corey Steiner of Steiner Media in how to use video to drive web visibility. And then the rest of our Secrets to Success webinar series in September, will feature Kendra Aukamp, who's a digital sales strategist for Gannett Media. She'll talk about how to drive traffic to your business. Scott Bushke will talk about selling your business, learn how to prepare. Bill Foch will be talking about how to increase profitability and growth with open book management. And in December, we are going to end on the second Tuesday and the second Thursday of the month with Mary from Envision talking about some financial and regulatory hotspots for 2014. So with that, again, I'd like to thank Jim Ball, Mickey Noon at First Business, and Michael Wentworth of TMR Associates. And thank you all for attending. Now go sell successfully. Goodbye.